Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending a meeting of the Municipal and Public Affairs Committee, Ad hoc Committee of the Binghamton City Council of the City of Binghamton, 5 p.m. Wednesday, November 9th, 2022. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Clerk will call the roll.
Riley. Councilwoman Friedman is absent.
I'm here. I'm present.
Sorry, I meant to say Councilwoman Resnetti is absent. Chair Scaringi.
Present.
Okay, so we do have a quorum of the MPA committee members, and for the record, Councilman Burns and Councilwoman Friedman are both here.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you again to my colleagues for attending this evening, and for anyone who may be streaming live, watching at home. The purpose of this committee meeting for MPA, or Municipal Public Affairs, to be referred as the acronym moving forward, is for the purpose of redistricting for the City of Binghamton. Rough agenda for this evening will be a very broad 30,000 foot level introduction to the process, talk for a few moments about the census and how that loops in. At that point, I will hand it over to Binghamton Corporation Counsel, Brian Seacrest, for a short legal review, anything that he deems necessary. Then we will talk about redistricting tool, our schedule, and then we will adjourn from that moment, notwithstanding any comments or questions from colleagues. So, every 10 years, per the Constitution of the United States, the nation engages in what we refer to as a census to understand the migration pattern changes for individuals within municipalities and states throughout the entire country. When that occurs, dependent upon whether total net population of any municipality or state increases, approximately stays the same, or decreases, that determines what is referred to, at least for a legislative body, and you'll hear me reference this a few moments throughout the course of the night, as a mean population score, which is used as the barometer by which changes in legislative districts occur and must fall within a total variance of 5% of that mean. I'll explain what that little means in a few minutes. So that being said, the City of Binghamton is made up of 7 single member districts, meaning that there are 7 districts. 1 representative is elected per district only within the boundaries of that district. Given that we had a census in 2020, that information obviously has been filed, portioned down to the states, and then down to the municipalities. New York State has engaged in its redistricting process. Broome County has engaged in its redistricting process, and now, by state law, municipalities will engage in that and must complete that by the end of this year. So that is a short introduction into what redistricting is and how the census files into that. Mr. Corporation Counsel, the microphone is yours, sir.
Memo this afternoon, probably around noontime. It lays out what the law is. If you go to the last 2 pages, the entire section on the municipal home rule law that deals with redistricting is there in 2 pages. What really sort of defines what we do here, or what the body will be doing, are the bullet points that are on page 1 and 2 of the memo. There's 5 points. These points used to come from case law. The actual statute that New York used to have used to be pretty generic, and then there was a lot of cases that sort of defined how you did this. But in 2021, New York State adopted a new legislation that changed this section of the municipal home rule law. There's now 5 principles. They appear as little I, two I. They appear on the bottom of the first page. The first one that really applies to us is in a single member district, which is the chairman was just referencing. The districts have to be nearly equal in population as is practical, which is about what the law used to say. But then they go on to define that the difference in population between the most and least populous district shall not exceed 5% of the mean population. So most of us understand that that means that it's going to be 2.5% up or 2.5 down, and they all have to be within that range for the districts. They will also not be drawn, and this is pretty obvious, and it's sad that they have to even put this in the law, that it will not be withdrawn with the intent or result of denying or abridging equal opportunity by racial or language minority groups, participate in political process, or to diminish their ability to elect representatives of their own choice. Should be a given, but I don't think it's gonna be a problem here. Districts that shall consist of contiguous territory. You can't chop it up and have little pockets around the city that you put together. And then it also has to be compact and form, meaning that you can't form the, you've heard the term gerrymandering, where it like twists around like a snake. You can't draw districts that way. And none of our districts are that way at the present. Districts shall not be drawn to discourage competition or for purposes of favoring or disfavoring incumbents or other particular candidates or political parties. Maintenance of core, and then I believe that's sort of the principle. And I read the second sentence of 5 as being the maintenance of cores of existing districts or pre-district political subdivisions, including cities and of communities of interest, shall also be considered. So my interpretation of that would be that if we had to make changes to the first district, or I'm thinking first ward, which is not actually an election district, but the GO's district will say that you don't pick something out of the center of it. You would eat around the fringes and shift to different districts, is what they're encouraging you to do, so that the core stays the same. And then finally, the districts are formed to promote the orderly and efficient administration of elections. And I will also tell you that these 5 factors are ranked. The highest order is given to number 1, next is 2, 3, 4, and that orderly and efficient administration of elections is the last and least considered point. So they're weighted from top to bottom. And I think, quite frankly, probably the biggest hurdle we will face, or you will face in a redistricting this year, is coming up with a plan that has the populations within that 5% median. That has the population numbers that meet that first criteria, 5% of the median, within 5%, not 2.5 above or below the median.
Anything else you want to add?
Run off again. At the end of the memo, I've provided or worked sort of reverse engineered a timeline for because it needs to be done by the end of the year.
Right.
And it goes back. Basically, this body needs to be done by Monday, so that on Tuesday, the 28th, it is ready to be considered on your desk. So it could be there for 7 days as a local law, so that it can then be published with 3 to 5 days, and you can have your public hearing on the December 7th meeting. Typically, you could vote on it on December 7th if you wanted to, but typically you like to hold it over to the next month, to the next regular session scheduled meeting, which would be your final meeting of the year, which is the 23rd, if I remember correctly. It's the 23rd or 21st?
21st.
21st.
Excellent. Thank you. I will pause here for a moment.
The one other thing that I would point out is at the very end of the memo, late edition, I gave the link to the website that I think Gio's going to be talking about. I'm assuming Councilman Scaringi is going to be talking about regarding where you get the redistricting tool is, and that will allow you to get there. If you know where the Broome County GIS website is, it's on that homepage at the very bottom.
Correct. Thank you, sir. I will pause here for a moment. Any questions or comments or discussion points from colleagues? Anyone? Councilwoman Freeman, please.
Thank you, Chairman Scringy. So just to reiterate, in order to adhere to this timeline, we have to form the map by this coming Monday.
The Monday, the 28th.
Oh, Monday. the
Yeah,
28th.
no,
Monday,
yeah.
the 28th.
Okay, that's
Got
why I
2
was
weeks.
like,
I'm sorry. I
okay,
misspoke.
made me, no, that's okay. I wanted to make sure that I was understanding that correctly, which I was not. So thank you for clarifying.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's why actually I made a bullet for the schedule itself, to round that out. Councilman Burns.
Yeah, thanks. Is there, the GIS tool, do we have any, printout or anything that tells us what actually changed in the city of Binghamton district wise? I mean, how did my district, did it go up and down in population?
You can actually look at that from the districting tool, which I will show you this evening.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to give you guys a crash course on how to use it,
Okay,
as well as the public, because obviously this will be on YouTube as well.
okay. It's just, yeah, like my district, I know,
Yeah.
didn't really change. I mean, there was no housing built and there's no empty houses. So,
Yeah,
I
well,
mean, I'll look at what it is.
with a small brush, this is very, very broad, 30,000 foot level. The south side decreased. The first district decreased. The second district increased. The third district, and fourth, the downtown had a little bit of a, yeah. Right. What's that? Yeah, the 2020 census data, that's just in relation to the variance of the new numbers that we have. Yeah, because the tool, the redistricting tool has the mean built in. So I'll actually show that to you guys. Any other questions, comments? Can everyone see the board okay? Councilwoman Freeman, is that okay? Vantage point for you? Obviously. Okay. So that being said, let's jump right in. So for purposes of the last two bullet points, I'm going to focus specifically right now on the tool itself. And then I will talk about transparency, availability, scheduling, and dates. We'll take another round of comments or questions, and then that'll be it for the evening. So let's jump right in. When you open the tool, which the availability and location of the link we will talk about during the scheduling. So we're focusing on the tool right now. When you load the page, this is the first thing you see. There are three things that you want to pay attention to. Number one, which is arguably the most obvious, the map of the city of Binghamton. Right now, the purple lines that you see on the map are the current city council districts. So this is what we are deviating away from, right? You will also notice that each purple district, council district 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, again, identified in purple, has smaller lines in it and numbers that are orange. Those are the new election districts in the city of Binghamton. Just for some information as it relates to broad changes in census data, from the 2010 census up until now, we had 32 election districts in the city of Binghamton. We now have 30. So we've went down by 2. Okay. So again, purple lines, boundaries of council districts, current. orange lines, boundaries of new election districts. So let's just remember that differentiation. The second and third areas that you want to pay attention to on the home screen of the tool are in the upper right, this toolbar, and the upper left, this toolbar. For illustrative purposes, you'll notice that the title of this is 2020 City of Binghamton Council Redistrictor. The 2020 is not a misprint. 2020 refers to the year of the census, not the current calendar year we are. So what I will do is I will walk through the upper right toolbar first, and then the upper left. When you load the page and you look at the upper right-hand toolbar, you'll see that moving from left to right, first select a menu item, council district. You'll notice that it says unassigned. When you click it, a drop menu comes down. Unassigned is the default. Now, this is where you get to start being somewhat creative. So for purposes of this illustration, I will use the first city council district, the council district that I represent. So what you will do is you will select District 1. Again, here are the purple boundaries. As it relates to right now, the new election districts that encompass the first council district are election district 1, 2, 5, most of 6, and a part of 12. If I want to select any area on the map, if you hover the mouse over the map, you will see a pop-up that says, press down to start and let go. For usury purposes, replace the words press down or words think of your mouse. If I want to select District 2, I start outside and I click down on the left button and begin. As I drag, you will notice that there is a large red bordered rectangle that is forming. When I let it go, you will notice it's now selected, right? Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That added a portion of, or rather at least most of election district 2. If I want to add more, I can simply just make a new rectangle and add more areas. Are there any questions? Do we need anything? Okay. If I want to remove an area, I can zoom in. Or do I have to hit erase? All right. If you click the erase button, that will erase anything that you've added. Does that make sense? So I can add, I can take away. Does that make sense? If you would like to work on multiple districts at once, you come back to the set target council district, and let's say Councilwoman Riley. I go to District 3. If I want to add something again, I click. I add that correctly. Oops. Forgive me. Let me do that one more time. There we go. Right. Sorry about that. So again, let's say I'm adding a few things in Council District 1. And let's say I wanted to look at something in District 3. I click and I add, right? What you will notice is when you select a different district, it will automatically change the color to differentiate between the districts, right? So if I add District 2 and I add a little bit, if I add Councilwoman Friedman, District 4, I add District 5, Councilman Burns, if I add District 6, President Strawn, if I add District 7, Councilman Scanlon, you'll see that they're all different colors. So it auto defaults to something different dependent upon the district number that you select. Does that make sense? Okay. Something important to note. Go back again to District 1, right? If I add something, you can see over here in the upper right-hand corner. Does everyone see that negative number, negative 86.97%? When you add or take away any geographic area in a singular district, that number will automatically change. That's an important number because that is the deviation from the mean. That number can be no more within a range of negative to positive 2.5%. That makes sense to everybody?
Mhm.
So when we talk about the regression from the mean or the deviation from the average, that's what we're referring to. That negative 2.5 to that positive 2.5 range needs to be for all 7 districts. Now, that being said, sorry, let me just reset this. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Just make sure that was not reset. Sorry, guys, I just needed to reset that link. My apologies. So, there we go. Yes. So, if you click on this little thing that looks like a book, see where it says Open District Stats window? This is an important number, 6,893. That is the mean population per district. So when it says 2.5% in either direction or 5% from the mean, that's the number that we're talking about. All right. Now, that being said, if I were to add, let's go to District 1 again, all right? I add some areas, right? So it's negative 59.32%. All right. Once you start filling in one or more districts and you click on the little book icon in the upper right-hand corner, you'll now end up in a situation in which you can see the deviation for all 7 districts. Now, obviously, I haven't added anything else. So districts 2 through 7 with their assigned colors, they obviously all have 0 because there's nothing there, right? So with this area highlighted, that would mean that the population that I'm representing right now is 2,804 individuals, and it's a negative 59.32% on that deviation. Does that make sense? Okay. As you do this, if you'll notice down over here, you can download this table into an Excel file by clicking download district statistics table, right? So it'll just populate a file. You download it like you would normally from a web browser, open it up, auto opens in Excel as the default. If you need to erase anything, this little eraser button here that says clear all districts, you just click that, click OK, and it clears everything out. Any questions on the toolbar on the upper right-hand side? Councilman Burns.
Is there now? I mean, after you highlight it and then you go to that, it shows you the population that you've highlighted.
Yes, sir.
But is there a window that will show us what the population is without, already in each district? Or do you have to highlight each district fully to see what those populations?
Oh, to see, well, so the auto defact would be no. And the reason why is because the districts that we're looking to ultimately create will be new. Does that make sense? This one right here.
I mean, my thinking is that if we had it all, there you go. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I misunderstood. So
And
you
then
mean
you can,
the
then you can say,
district
well, we
says,
could move this over this way and move that over that way.
I see what you're, okay, the districts as they are now. I got you. Okay, my apologies. Yes, so you could click on load current districts, right? And then the table will give you all the
There we
information.
go. There we go.
Yeah, it pulls from the set. Mm-hmm. Right. Correct. But remember, with this table, technically speaking, looking at this table, while it may serve as a starting point, which is fine, remember that technically this table is completely worthless because these deviations are based on new data, which will technically be from old maps. So technically, while I agree with you, it does serve it as a good starting point. The deviations in and of themselves serve no purpose, right? Because again, obviously by extension, they will change as soon as you change a border. And again, it's also worth noting here, right? If you start from the very, very beginning, again, as I mentioned earlier, outlined in purple are the boundaries of the current maps already. So you have that starting point. But it is fair to ask if I wanted to see, based on the new data, you could click show all districts, click OK, drop it down, and there you go. And you have it. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Correct. Technically, yeah, it could. Sure. Well, see, so for what it's worth, right? So I'll take a step out of the box here. Councilman Burns, to credit of what you mentioned earlier, right? There arguably is something interesting about the deviations of the new data based on what will be the older maps, right?
Right.
And arguably that is the deviation changes around the new mean are a numerical expression of whether the population in that district increased or decreased, as well as by how much, right? So for example, District 1 had a decrease in population. Districts 2 and 3 and 4 had increases in population. Districts 5, 6, and 7 had decreases in population, right? From a geographic standpoint, there's a problem that the South Side has. If there's two districts, which there are, in the current South Side maps, because both of them lost population, by definition, if you take geographic land areas, one from the other, you're not getting the other district to a point that it has to be, because both of those negatives for districts 5 and 6 are below a negative 2.5%.
Right.
Right. So we already know some part of the South Side is going over the river. It's going to,
Right.
because it has to get that population from
I
somewhere.
know that the county and Mark Whalen's district, I forget the number,
The county lit district, right?
he went over the river.
Yes,
His district went over.
right.
It used to be only on the south. But at any rate, it
Yeah.
does, it does not.
It does go over,
does
yeah,
go over the
it does go over the river. Yes, it does. So, yeah, that's a reality. That's a reality that it has to, because again, you have to get that population from somewhere and you can't go anywhere. Now, where that will end up being, we don't know that right now.
Right.
So again, that brings us back to here. So any other questions on the upper right-hand toolbar? Councilwoman Friedman.
This isn't really a question well, I guess it is a question. If
Sure.
we have the mean population of each district, and so then we can figure out an actual numerical range between which the population of each district has to fall, right? Because if we figure out what is 2.5%
Yes.
of 6,893.
Yep.
And then we add it and subtract it, then we have an,
You could descriptive statistics, you could calculate a min and a max. Yes. You could.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, because and the mean population of each district is based on the total population of the city divided by 7, or is that data based on the old maps as well?
It is based on the total population of the city relative to the change of the census block now versus 10 years ago. So it's not something that's easily divisible. And the way that we know that is because if that was the formula, right? So again, if we click all districts and bring down the table, none of those deviations are the same, right? If it
Right.
was some number, i.e. total population divisible by 7 districts, all those deviations would be exactly the same, some negative number. The
Right.
reason why they're all different is because different census blocks make up each respective council district, and not all of those are the same.
Right. No, I understand that of course, the distribution would have changed from 2010 to 2020.
Right.
Okay. I guess I'm still a little bit confused as to where that 6,893 number came from, if it's not just easily divisible, if we take the total population of the city divided by 7 districts.
Because you can take the calculation that I just described for each of the 7 districts and then take the average of those 7. That's how you get the
Okay,
mean.
so the mean population of each district is based on the old map, is that correct?
It's based on
The old-
census blocks
Right,
of the change from the 2010 map to the 2020.
okay, so okay. I'll think about this on my own, thank you.
Sounds good. Any other questions? Okay, let's move to the left. On the left, you will find very first, all the way on the left, if you click, a handy dandy help tool. You can scroll up and down. It tells you how to do different things on there. The next one looks like a little filing cabinet. When you click on that, this is where you can save a draft that you are working on, which this will obviously be important for all of us, right? So let's practice saving one now. So I can show you how that works. So let's hypothetically say, right? District 1, sorry. District 1, District 2, District 3, District 4, District 5, District 6, District 7. Let's say this was your hypothetical final draft that you wanted to present, right? I just want to illustrate the different colors, right? You would come to the filing cabinet and you would look at the top portion where it says project name. So we would give it a name. So let's just say draft 1. And you would click this little icon to the right of it. When you click that, it says ready to download. You click close. You see that? Downloaded it into that folder. Now, let's say you had a next door neighbor that was also working on a draft and they sent you their file. How would you open it? This is how you would do it. You would come again to the filing cabinet, but this time pay attention to the bottom half. You would click choose file, open it, and upload it. And once you see the name there, you would click the little button all the way to the right, and it shows up. So that is how you save something you work on, get a digital file of it, and then open one. Any questions on that? Okay. The next one is important. These are layers and legends. So let's clear this out. And let's get a recenter. So this right here is just a zoom. For what it's worth, if you wanted to see the county legislative districts, you can just click that button and it populates them in red. Right, so you see LD 15, LD 13, LD 12, right? Obviously, there are only a few that are within the boundaries of the city of Binghamton. Now, this check mark election districts will just turn on those boundaries or turn them off. If you want to turn off the current boundaries of the existing council districts, you can turn them off, you can turn them on. If for some reason you're looking at a broader map and you want to get rid of the border of the city of Binghamton, you can do that too. If you want to turn off and on census blocks, you can do that as well. If you turn on streets, when you zoom in, as you just saw it populate, it will populate the names of streets, all right? And then these are just the population labels for I'm just going to turn the street names off because it's a little messy. And that is layers and legends. Any questions on that? Okay. The next three consecutive ones are a zoom in, right? A zoom out. And the third one is a hand. So if you were in the screen where you were adding districts, get rid of this. If you were just adding districts and you wanted to move the map, just click on the little hand and click anywhere and it'll just move for you. That's all that does, right? Reset that. If you're on the hand that where you click and drag and you want to go back to changing maps, you just click on this little arrow right here and that allows you to go back and select again. Right. These are forward and backwards buttons. Think of them as a backspace or a delete versus a moving forward, right? It's important to note with the arrow buttons that the only thing that they go back or forward with is nothing substantive. So it doesn't make changes as it relates to you coloring different areas of the map. But let's say, for example, if I zoomed and I wanted to go back, it'll change that. That makes sense? And then lastly, the scale, it's really more pixelization than anything else, right? It was at 43,000. I just typed in 30. Basically, the smaller the number, the more zoomed in. I just find using the actual scroll wheel an easier way to zoom. That's entirely up to you. All right. And then lastly, how do you print something if you want a PDF or you want to actually physically print a piece of paper? All right. Let's say I wanted to print. I'm not going to make a lot of changes here. This map, right? I would come to this little piece of paper, open print settings windows, right? Landscape, name the file, PDF. Do you want to include the legend or not? Do you want feet or miles? And do you want a legend? Yes or no? You click apply settings. This is probably not going through because I'm obviously not connected to a printer, but after you have it all set, apply settings would be to the settings you click. Then you come over to the printing button. It says processing. And then see how that open map just came there? You can click that and it will give you a downloadable PDF that you can download and print. And yep, and right here, right, at least on a Mac, you would just click that down button, or if you have a PC, do whatever it is you do on a PC. Yes. Now keep in mind, I had legend off. I didn't have it selected on, but yeah. I believe it does, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Any questions on any of that? Councilwoman Riley.
Yes, so for the sake of our viewers and our constituents at home, I will point to this overview. Can you start from the landing page of the GIS to get to the City of Binghamton tool?
Simplest way to get to Broome County GIS, just Google Broome County GIS, click on the first link. I believe it is on the bottom right, correct? COVID-19. We are actually going to put a direct link to this on the city website. I didn't get to that yet. Search results, data, story. Let's see, maybe maps. These are the current maps. Election results. we're going to put a direct link on to, yeah, so I'll hit that. Anything else as it relates to the tool? Councilwoman Friedman, please.
As a follow-up to Councilwoman Riley's question,
Sure.
when will we, do you estimate when will we be able to have access to this tool?
Already have that set. Going to discuss that in 30 seconds.
Perfect.
Any
You're
other?
welcome for the segue.
Okay, so let's talk about public availability, public consumption, and meeting of MPA meetings going forward. So beginning on Friday of this week, which will be the 11th of November, at open of business, 9 a.m. The following information will be available for public consumption on the City of Binghamton's website. So when you go to the City of Binghamton website and you come to government, you click on City Council. On the City Council page, right above our names and pictures and contact information, is going to be a paragraph with some general information about what the redistricting process is and a hyperlink that will go directly to the redistricting tool. So again, that will be on the City Council's page of the City of Binghamton website, hyperlinked right here at the top. Any constituents or residents or members of the public that would like to provide any public input or even a draft of a map that they have created, starting at 9 a.m. Friday, November 11th, can email that to redistricting@cityofbinghamton.gov. That is redistricting@cityofbinghamton.gov. At my direction, I have made the executive decision that for reasons of transparency on a substantive level, members of the city clerk's office will not deal with anything redistricting related, as they are appointed members of this body. I'm putting that out there right now. The only thing the Binghamton City Clerk and the Binghamton City Deputy Clerk will do is take all public input that is received at that email address, which again is redistricting@cityofbinghamton.gov, is aggregate that information for purposes to provide it to us. That is it. Nothing more. Again, that will be at 9 a.m. beginning this Friday, the 9th of November, 2022. That being said, we have been provided with the following draft schedule and calendar to ensure that we are meeting the state municipal home rule law to ensure that we get this done in a manner that will bring us to the end of this calendar year. The final draft for legislation, which includes a final draft map, will be Monday, November 28th of 2022. This is because of the municipal home law, subsection 20. The local law must be in its final form and on the desk of the council members for 7 calendar days, exclusive of Sundays, before a public hearing. The clerk must also provide the standard public notice of the public hearing 3 to 5 days prior to the public hearing. That, of course, is in accordance with New York State open meetings law. If we have a final draft by Monday, November 28th, and we properly notice, which of course we know the city clerk's office will, the public hearing will be held on Wednesday, December 7th, 2022, beginning at 6 p.m., which is our first business meeting of the month of December. That will allow us to review any information up until that point, bringing us to our final business meeting of not just December, but of the calendar year, which would be December 21st, 2022. As chair of this committee, I am going to recommend that this body put forward to the general body, the city council, a final draft by Monday, November 28th, and for purposes of the public as well as ourselves, to allow the maximum amount of time for public input. I will be open and transparent and suggest that it will be my recommendation that RL at the December 7th meeting be held over, so we can vote on it on the 21st. That being said, there's one final aspect to this that is arguably of the most importance, which is the public and public input. It is my goal, and I think I can safely assume my colleagues as well, that the maximal amount of time for public input is what serves us best. So that being said, my recommendation is going to be that we allow email submissions, again, at redistricting at cityofbinghamton.gov, all the way up until and including Friday, December 16th, 2022. That is the Friday immediately before our last business meeting. So this is advantageous, in my opinion, for two reasons. Number one, it maximizes the time for public input, which again, I believe, we all believe, is the most important. And number two, it also allows for overlap of not just receiving public input, but of the RL being held over at the December 7th meeting. So we're actually allowing not only the maximum amount of time for public input, but we are allowing the maximal amount of time for public input prior to a final draft and post a final draft. We need to give the city clerk's office, our city clerk and deputy city clerk, as well as the IT department, time to aggregate all of that information, distribute it to all members of city council. At that moment, at close of business on the end of December 16th, that Friday at 5:01 p.m., that email address will no longer be active. It will not take email submissions. That portion of the city council page as it relates to redistricting will come down as that public input is closed. But that is the maximal amount of time that we can allow for. And I think we owe our residents that. And I would tend to believe that everyone thinks the same. I will put this out there. Are there any questions or comments as it relates to anything about the location, public availability, and public consumption of the tool and of the schedule that I have just described? Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you again, Chair Scaringi. I like the calendar as you've proposed. However, when will we combine our tools and develop consensus before we present to our colleagues on the council if we're doing it on the 28th?
You mean discussions between us?
Yes,
is
so
what you're referring
because we're going back, we're playing with the maps on our own. But again, MPA, we're missing one of our MPA members, and we have council colleagues that may want to weigh in before we present our final committee map on the 28th, which is after the holiday weekend, by the way.
It is. Go ahead, please continue. So thank you for that. I did take that into account. given the timeline, again, per the state home rule law, the time to do that between all of us, which is obviously necessary, is going to have to be Monday, November 28th. Please go ahead.
We, as a committee, will convene. Each council member has their own map. We're going to download them and compile them into the various showings so we can demonstrate our reasons why prior to the work session or during work session.
We can do it during work session, obviously, because that's what work sessions are there for. I don't want to make an assumption as to, I might work with my neighbor on a map. People might caucus together and so you're right. I mean, there could be one draft map. There could be 7. Who knows? There could be 20. The public will provide input, possibly even with a map, right? Anything's possible. But again, given the timeline, again, that's not due to us, just due to the state law. That's the position we're in. So given that reality, which I took into account, and I agree with the broader point that you're making, the most liberal amount of time will probably serve us best. So we can bring our A+ to the table when we do it. Any other questions or comments? Okay. That being said, just for purposes of continuity, Councilwoman Riley, as the other sitting member of the MPA committee, I will respectfully request to entertain a motion from you to accept the logistics of everything we described tonight in the calendar and the public hearing information and the location information of the link on the public website, just so we can codify that in a vote.
I move that we accept the calendar as proposed, the location of the link for our constituents, residents, and other public entrants, people with a public, forget it, people from the public that are interested in submitting a map, and also everything as discussed and outlined in the document shared earlier today.
As a sitting member of the Municipal and Public Affairs Committee, I will second that motion. That motion's been made by Councilwoman Riley, seconded by Councilman Scaringi. Any discussion by committee members or non-committee members? I will entertain a motion to close discussion.
I move that we close discussion.
The clerk will call the roll. Yeah, I second. But thank you. Yeah.
Councilwoman Riley.
Present.
Well, yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes. You said call the roll. Right.
And Councilwoman Resnetti is absent and Chairman Scaringi.
Aye.
That's 2 ayes, 1 absent, Resnetti.
That is unanimous from the MPA committee to bring this forward to the full body to communicate to Mayor Cram and the related departments within City of Binghamton Hall. Any other discussion? Councilwoman Riley, motion to adjourn.
You have a suggestion, perhaps. I know it's kind of quick and we may not be able to reach out to our colleagues, but if we could start Monday looking at proposals during work session, that way we see where we are and what we're thinking thus far, just so we can have an initial discussion.
We have something to talk
about. If I would respectfully say, I personally, this is just my own personal opinion. I obviously can't speak for him. I personally don't see a problem with that at all. Just respectfully, I would let President Strawn know that, as the agenda is his as council president. But if we wanted to allocate some time for that, I'm sure he would oblige, but I don't want to speak on his behalf. But I don't disagree.
The MPA committee could formally request some time on the agenda at President Strawn's discretion.
Sure. So I will reach out to President Strawn. I will ask him that.
And if we have received any comments, anything at that time, we can, I hate for you to rehash this for those that are not in attendance. But again, if anyone has a map they'd like to show at that time, then we start discussions early.
Sure.
That concludes that question, and I move that we adjourn.
Motion by Councilwoman Riley, seconded by Councilman Scaringi. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you for joining.